I encourage everyone to take a moment and breathe and take a tea cheers with Ajiri tea. Ajiri tea recognizes the beauty in shared stories and shared opportunities. Ajiri sources award-winning tea from Kenya, employs women in the region to handcraft the labels, and sends 100% of the profits back to the region to support orphan education. Save 10% on your order of Kenyan teas and coffee with the code BeautifullyHuman at ajiritea.com. AJIRIT.com. Tea mugs up. Hello and welcome to the Beautifully Human podcast. I'm Nick Sheesby. In this podcast, I speak with beautiful humans from all around the world, sharing with you their incredible stories, revealing the power in every human story, to spread love and humanity to a world that is in desperate need of it, to show that we can all connect in beautiful ways, no matter where we come from or what we look like. What you will find out is that we are all beautifully human. Let's all be beautifully human. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Beautifully Human podcast. Today, I am hanging out with Soheila Hakimi, and we talk all about traumas and coming to grips with parts of your life that are really incredibly tough while living a life that is online and seen in a completely different light, and the power that holds. We also talk just about travel and getting paid to travel and what that looks like. I will let her explain all of that to you. This is a really beautiful conversation, such a fun chat. If you enjoy this podcast, follow on Spotify and on Instagram at the Beautifully Human Podcast. Rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. And again, I hope you truly enjoy this conversation. So I like to start these off very broad and let you kind of just take it where it leads. And the question is, tell me a story of your life.
A story of my life.
The story of your life.
The story of my life?
Yeah.
Like starting from the beginning?
Wherever you want to start.
Okay. So yeah, I was born and raised in Toronto, Canada. And I grew up here most of my life. I did go to university in Australia, which if you've never been to Australia, it's a great place to go and so much fun. And
that's awesome.
And yeah, and I started content creating about 5 years ago. And then I created my podcast 2 years ago, which you'll be on, and I'm so excited to have you on. And I've just been trying to create content, and I've been doing a lot of travel writing and writing for other publications, both in the US and Canada, mostly travel stuff. But yeah, my podcast, I think, was one of the things that I think brings me most fulfillment. And it's a mental health podcast, and it's really because I've been on a mental health healing journey. And, you know, that kind of does sound like woo-woo, but like I've suffered.
Very important.
Yeah. Well, you know, sometimes I feel like when people say like healing journey, it sounds like fairy dust and blah, 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 spiritual or whatever. But really, it has changed my life because when I was 18, I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety and PTSD. I was sexually assaulted, and it kind of all stemmed from there. And I hid it away for a very, very long time and didn't tell anyone and didn't acknowledge it and just compartmentalized that and put it away and like didn't want to look at it for a really long time. And in the last 2 years, I've actually started to address all of the hidden subconscious self-doubt, loss of self-trust that I've had, and it's really allowed me to have love for myself that I never had before, which has like just changed everything. So that's, I think, the thing I'm most proud of in my life.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part of life for a lot of people, is finding that self-love and allowing yourself to let your trauma in and then heal from it,
Yeah.
especially when you hide from it for so long. So how was that process for you? What did it take for you to start going through that with yourself and the healing?
Well, I maybe like 2.5 years ago, really, I had been doing social media, influencing, content creating for over 2.5 years at that point, maybe even 3 years. And I was just always putting myself down. I had a negative inner dialogue. I was playing the comparison game a lot. Obviously, social media can be very, very toxic for that kind of stuff. And it was literally eating me alive. And I was just so depressed and I was crying every day. And, but I'd take these like really happy, lovely photos and, I wasn't resonating with that person. And I was just like,
Yeah.
I'm so tired of putting on this like Instagram reality that doesn't feel like authentic to me, and how upset I am right now. And I remember like we got invited to the Ritz-Carlton for like a staycation, and me and my boyfriend went, and I was like, I don't really want to do like light and airy, like let's do moody. And so we did moody, and I fucking loved it. And I was like, oh, yes, this is how I feel right now. I feel so dark and moody, and it is beautiful.
Fuck yeah.
And so then like I started to like actually talk, which, like being vulnerable on social media could go totally the wrong way.
Right. Yeah.
But I was able to like actually like connect with people, and it empowered me to like continue sharing how I authentically was feeling. And so it still was really rocky. Like I was still, trying to find myself, trying to find my identity, trying to find my voice, which is so hard. And I think that's something that I struggled a lot with because I didn't have a lot of self-trust. And so like I didn't like myself.
Sure.
And I think also because I wasn't addressing like things that had happened to me in my past, it was taking me, like I was doing things and I was acting out and I was being destructive, and I wasn't taking care of myself or my friends groups. And, I come from like a tumultuous is a kind word to say, but like tumultuous family. And so growing up, my dad has a bit of like some narcissistic tendencies, and when you grow up in an environment like that, sorry, you definitely do pick up on those types of paranoias and insecurities and stuff like that. So you'd always try to be like the smartest person in the room, but then but you're never really the smartest person in the room. And so you're always kind of paranoid. And so I could see myself acting in certain ways that I knew that was inappropriate. And I didn't like myself, and I didn't like the way that I was acting, and I didn't think that that was right. It was just like taught by example.
Sure.
And so, yeah. That's that. I think like, so after we went to the Ritz and after I like started to kind of like look into myself and find my identity, maybe like, I don't know, a couple months later, like 4 months later, I was at an event, and I'm like, doing stories, whatever, like looking on my phone, like, oh, I got someone added me. So I like looked to see who it was. And it was the person that sexually assaulted me. And I hadn't seen this person in like 10 years. I hadn't talked to this person like since that time. I hadn't talked to them, hadn't like seen them, hadn't, just avoided them. Like hadn't even thought of them. And so they had added me, and I just really started to, it was like I just didn't feel safe. They weren't in the room with me at this event. Like the situation hadn't changed. It was just like this person kind of like stepped back into my life, and I was just like, no, like this is my safe little social media space. Like you're not allowed in here. You're not allowed in my life. Like I don't care if it's open to the public. And I literally had an anxiety attack, and I panicked, and I just like left, and I went home, and I couldn't talk, and my boyfriend was there, and he was like, "What's up with you?" And I'm just like, like I can't function. I need to like take a shower and go to bed. And then I cried in the shower because I was just like so emotional, and I don't think I don't think he knew what was going on. He was probably like, I don't know, watching the UFC fights or something, and just was just like, oh, I guess she's tired, and so then go to bed, and then wake up. I'm a pretty bad sleeper as it is, but like wake up at like 4 a.m, and I'm still like wired, like, oh my God, like that thing happened to me. And I'm like thinking about it in my head, and I'm like, no, like, because I never admitted to myself what it was. I didn't want to say like, no, like you were raped. You were raped, like it was just like, no, like I don't know, like I don't remember what happened. What if he just didn't have sex with me? I'm like, no, like you have like flashes of memory, and I'm like, so no, I mean, like you don't have to remember the entire event,
Sure.
So it took me a really long time to actually admit it to myself, be like, no, that's what that was. That's like, if we're gonna put a label on this situation, that's what that was. That was not okay.
Yeah.
And then I really like started to lose it. And I had like taken this pretty picture. Me and my boyfriend had just gone back from like Portugal on a trip where I had done like a lot of sponsored content and stuff, but I had taken this really beautiful photo on a beach, and I just like deleted the whole caption, and I was just like, this happened to me. It's taken me for up until like this moment 10 years to actually admit it to myself. And like if anybody's out there and they're struggling with this, know that you're not alone, and like my DMs are always open to talk about it. But like, and then of course I like started bawling again, and then my boyfriend was like, it's 5:36 in the morning. What's going on? Why are you crying? And then I like kind of told him through sobs, and he was like, what? Like I don't think he was awake. Like he just couldn't really understand what was going on. And then and so then we like kind of got up and tried to move through the day. And like at one point, like I was taking another shower, and I was crying in the shower, and then he heard me, and then he like came into the shower with all his clothes on and was like giving me a hug. And so then I think that was the first time I shared about it on social media, and again, like got so many people really being very supportive and making me feel like I didn't have to hide it, even though like it obviously still makes me emotional. Like you could probably hear it in my voice.
Yeah, of
like
course.
How red my chest is. But I didn't feel as scared, and it was being able to post about it made me feel like I was taking my power back. Like when I was at the event the night before, I was upset. Like I was like, I didn't have control of my body. It was like, like shaking, and I had to leave, and I was having anxiety attack. But because I actually finally was able to like turn towards it and address it and say what it was and call it out, it was like I was taking my power back. Like, no, like you you can't come here. You know, like you're
Yeah,
not
yeah.
welcome here, and I'm gonna put your shit on blast. You know?
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah. So once I started really addressing it and then examining my behavior over the last couple years, everything kind of just started like clicking. And
Yeah.
like why I was, you know, either like self-sabotaging or why I was avoiding things, why I was numbing with like alcohol, why I was, you know, having a hard time trusting people and trusting myself, you know, why I would say I was going to do something and then, you know, like either procrastinate or like talk myself out of it or just not do it, you know, like stupid example, like you say you're going to like diet and then you like eat chocolate, you know,
Right.
like so I wouldn't like honor myself and honor my goals and honor my wishes. And so it
Yeah.
kind of all made sense at that point. And the more I kind of shared my vulnerable insecurities and parts of me, the more I felt connected with people and the more I felt empowered and the more I felt like I understood myself.
That's beautiful.
And so I think that was probably the best part of my life so far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's amazing how we all do that to ourselves, where we have something that happens and then we hide from it behind these things, and then once you give yourself that power of saying whatever trauma you've been through or whatever you're dealing with, and you finally talk about it, and then it's like, fuck, okay, then it starts clicking and you're like, that's why I did this. Oh man, like, and then it's almost again sabotaging yourself, going, why didn't I do it sooner? But it's like it just has to work itself to
Mm-hmm.
the right place. And then I think it speaks to the power of social media, even if you're not the biggest fan of it, of that Instagram life versus reality. And you were living that Instagram life where you had all this beautiful content, and
Yeah.
everybody can just perceive you as, oh my God, she's living the best life. She's all over the place. She's got all the whatever. And then you finally get to share exactly what you want to share.
Yeah.
And then the beautiful nature of it brings those people to you that are going to be there for you.
Yeah.
Which is really beautiful
Mm-hmm.
when that comes back around.
Yeah. And that's the thing also about like being disconnected from yourself is that you don't know who you are. And so you're constantly trying to be what everybody else would please everyone else, or like just keep it light because you don't want to bring anybody down, you know, or like you don't want to air out your dirty laundry, which was something that like my, you know, mom like really lived by, you know, like to not share too much on social media because you don't need everybody knowing your business. And to a degree, like I do get that, but it kind of comes with the territory at the same time,
Right.
you know. And I also think the mind is just this brilliant savior where if you experience trauma, it can protect you from that trauma by just helping you forget it, or like helping you I guess compartmentalize it so that you don't have to think about it. But in reality, it just then lives in your subconscious and it kind of just eats away at all the good things. So yeah, but I feel like a lot of people also experience that have you know, have had alcohol addictions and stuff like that, where they have blackouts and they don't remember the things that they did when they were drinking. And so when people call them out and said, don't you remember like being super mean to me? And they're like, no, I thought we were always cool and like besties. And you're like, no, dude, like, no.
Yeah. Yeah. I have so many of those moments where I'd wake up on a tour bus and I'd go into the venue and I'd just be like, oh fuck, what did I do last night?
Yeah.
I know I'm gonna find out immediately when I walk in. Somebody's going to say something. I just hope I didn't just damage something or do something so ridiculous that I need to be ashamed, but I have no idea what I'm walking into. It's a horrible feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. And so even, that can be like very difficult for some people to even like see that side of them, like you said, there's so much shame there. And there's so much of yourself that you have to address in that situation, and you don't even remember it.
Right.
And so you're like, oh my God, how could I do that? Like, sober me would not do that. Like, coherent me would not do that. And then all of a sudden there's like this whole other version of you, But so I pretty much kept the conscious version of me locked up for like 10 years until I finally started to address things that were really affecting me on a subconscious level. And then I understood once I like actually faced my trauma, what it was.
Yeah. And I mean, I know when I first found that self-love for me again, after I went through my alcoholism and then myself getting sick, how
long did that take? I'm curious for you. And what did you start with?
Waves.
Like, I want to, I'm doing the interview now. No.
Yeah.
What did you start with? Like, what kind of practice did you
have? So it came in waves. At first, I mean, it was such a mental game with me of figuring out how to just even exist as a sober human.
Yeah.
That was a massive part because I didn't even know what that looked like because I just hadn't been so long. And then I think, well, I know one of my really good friends who I reconnected with in my hometown around then. She's actually been on my podcast and we talked about it, and I cried when I was talking to her, and she's never drank and she has not really dealt with addictions. But she just saw me as a human. And so when I first was seen as that human again, that started into like, okay, that's me. Like, I didn't fuck up my life too much. Thankfully, I didn't pass away, which I thought I might.
Mm-hmm.
And then she saw me as that. And then I had another friend who I just met on the first tour I ever went back out on. We all met up in Chicago to start the tour, and everybody wanted to meet at a bar. So it was literally my first time ever walking back into a bar as a sober person. And I remember walking in, and he introduced himself, and he was like, "What are you drinking, dude?" And I just said, "I'll just take, I think, a soda water or something." And he's like, "Oh, you don't drink?" And I was like, different. I can't drink. I phrased it that way. And I will always phrase it that way because I do drink, and I drink massively, and that's my problem. So I can't drink ever again.
Yeah.
Is where I'm at. And he goes, "Oh, that's cool. No worries, dude. If you ever need to just leave the bar on the tour and we're out, just grab me. We'll get the fuck out of here." And that was the first time that I heard that it was cool to be sober.
Yeah.
And so it was just a journey of little incremental parts of some, a couple of people just saying like, "Oh, that's cool. Like,
yeah,
you're not horrible because you did this. You shouldn't be ashamed of yourself. Like, you're putting yourself out there, and you're being human again." So,
and I feel like you have to get to like a certain point, or everyone has to get to a certain point in their life where they can start to appreciate people for like what they've been through. Whereas like when you were 16 and you went to a party and someone was like, "Wait, you're not drinking," you like, everyone makes fun of you. But like,
right,
when you get a little bit older, a little bit wiser, you've been around the block a little bit, you're like, no, like, people have their shit, and like, you kind of gotta be respectful, because if you bring your shit to the table, like, you're gonna want a little bit of compassion too. So that's so good that you got that though.
Yeah, and it was super nice. And like, I think a really big one too is even the night I was in a hospital and I was told I might not have I might not have tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So you sit there and obviously you think about life. I was 33 at the time, and it was like, holy shit, man. If I don't have tomorrow here we go. We're going to have that movie scene of my life played out in front of me, and I have to get real okay with what my life was. And so I was just sitting there like playing my life out. And I did get a sense of pride in how I lived my life. Not necessarily the drinking part,
Yeah.
but it's not something I would change about myself. I had a blast doing it. It ended up in a really horrible situation, but I did have a good time. But I literally got to a point where I was like, you know what? If I do die tonight, I did life my way, and I enjoyed the hell out of it. And so that was a big first step of looking into life and saying, sure, was there shit that I wanted to do? And are there places that I've never been to that I do want to see? Of course, there's always going to be. That's what keeps me wandering around the world. But sitting there in that moment and saying, you know what? If this is all I got, I lived life the way I wanted to. I didn't play it safe. I went for it. And so that was the big first step into it.
See,
And
that's
then
beautiful.
these people along the way that just kept saying like, it's all good, man. Like, just
Yeah.
you're a person.
Yeah.
So you've done some shit, but we all have.
I'm getting to that point, I think. I don't think I've reached that point yet because I'm still becoming the person that I want to be. And I feel like because I wasn't fully myself, that like, the last couple of years I've still been finding myself. That in the last like 2-3 years, I feel like I'm starting to really find my footing and find my way, and I'm excited because like when I was going through my darkest period and my inner dialogue was really bad, I was always very scared like that I was going to be someone who was like failed to launch, like someone who like was doing all the things and then but just I don't know, just it just never happened. And all the signs were not showing me that, but that was my inner dialogue. Like I was working for other publications. I was getting, send places, getting awesome sponsorships. My audience was growing, but it didn't matter because I wasn't happy. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like in the last couple of years, I've been able to kind of feel better about where I'm going. And, I think also like you can have a couple hiccups along the way. Like I had a couple career changes. It's okay to like just find out who you are along the way. So that's what I'm kind of having, that like little bit of compassion for myself. And I feel like
Totally.
No, it's going to be fine. We're going to be fine.
Yeah. And I mean, as you grow, it's not surprising that you want to do other things, right?
Yeah.
I mean, as you learn about yourself, it's like, okay, I had this part of my life where I was influencer and everything was happy and I was doing this and I was traveling, whatever. But that's a part. Sure, that's a big, beautiful part of your life. But as you move towards this inner happiness and your mental state gets better and better, I mean, you're learning about yourself because you put all that aside for a decade.
Yeah.
And so now with all of you coming out, it's impossible to go through all that you're going through and feeling all these things and learning about yourself and finding that inner strength. You're going to be motivated in different avenues. You're going to see certain parts that you were doing that aren't that important anymore.
Yeah.
Or you're going to find new importance to the old stuff that you were doing and find new ways to promote it and better messages to come out of it, as opposed to just like, cool, life's rad. It's like, hey man, life's rad, but there's some fucked up shit along the way too. And even when life is really rad, no matter what state you get to, there always is going to be some shit that comes along with it.
Yeah.
That's life.
And I used to say like to myself, which I realized like after talking to so many experts on my podcast that I shouldn't say this, but I used to say that the only thing I was consistent at was being inconsistent, because I went to university for commerce and then like partway through was like, I don't like business. Then I'm going to go to fashion school. So I went to fashion school. I love fashion school, was on the dean's list. I went and worked for this Canadian fashion designer, loved it, decided I was going to start my own thing. So I started my own thing, but while I was in my second season, I completely burnt myself out. I was not taking care of myself. My mental health was declining severely. I would not go out. I would not spend a single dollar on myself to like hang out with friends or go have a nice dinner or get my nails done or any kind of pampering. It was just like, you're going to the office, you're spending all your money on fabric, you're going to sew, you're going to do all the things. And when I had my pop-up, so I did like a pop-up store. After like it was successful, everyone came out, people bought my merch, like everything was great. And then I just went home and cried because I was just like, oh my God, I just took all of my energy and focus on this one thing to get to this one goal. And now I've climbed up this hill and I'm at the top and I'm just breaking down.
Yeah.
Like it was so bad. And I was just like, I can't, like, I have anxiety. I don't even want to go into my studio anymore. I don't even want to like sit down at my sewing machine anymore, when that's the thing that like used to give me all the love and passion and fulfillment in my life, and it just wasn't there anymore. And so then I went into buying. I was a buyer, so it was like turn the tables. So they all kind of like followed each other in steps, and then I started content creating. So, you know, because I'm a content creator, I'm an entrepreneur, I had to know my business, my basic business stuff. So learned that through first 2 years of commerce. So that wasn't too bad, you know, like then I knew the ins and outs of fashion, and so it was easy to like to style looks and stuff for Instagram. So you learn things with each little inconsistency, as I would say, like, and you know, you pick up different techniques that help you actually become whatever new mold of whatever you are becoming that is so unique from anybody else, because you have picked up all of these skills. So I've learned that, you know, I was just trying on different hats, and it's okay to try on different hats.
Totally.
And if I want to change and not do content creation and just do podcasting, I can do that too, and it's fine.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's a really important message to people, is that you can do that.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, as you were talking, I was getting stressed out for you, thinking how much you were putting into this. And I see so many people get to this point of burnout, especially in creative environments. I mean, music industry, which I've been in. My brother's a chef. I was just speaking with him the other day, and he's at his wit's end with cooking because it's become something he's gotten sick of, and with content and fashion and all these high burnout ratios. It's like, it's good to look at it and say, I need to shift gears. I need to find a different creative avenue that is fun, because life also should be fun. What was it about it
that was fun, like, to begin with? What was it about it that you started to enjoy? Because you see, like, maybe it's all of the other stuff that stopped it from being fun. Like I took a break from content creating for like 3 weeks, and then I usually like actually put an effort into curating my photos and like editing them and making them look nice and stuff, professional. But I just posted like a couple stories as a reel, and it was like edited in the back of the car kind of thing, you know, like on the go. And I was just like, nah, this is good. You know? And I was like, I kind of liked creating. Like, I like making little videos, and I like doing little things like that, and or teaching myself stuff. Like I picked up I started learning the ukulele. I found it in my boyfriend's parents' closet at their house in December, and I was like, I'm gonna teach myself ukulele. So I've been teaching myself how to play ukulele, and it's been the funnest thing. And I'm just like, oh my God, like why did I not play an instrument my entire life until the last 5 months? Like, it's so fun.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, I mean, I wrote down just all the creative work that you do. And so that doesn't surprise me that all of a sudden that was a new aspect, a new avenue of creativity that was like, yeah, this is a lot of fun.
Well, I think one thing I've been lucky with is that I've never been scared to try something new. So like if I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to learn the ukulele, I'll just learn how to tune it and then I'm partway there.
Yeah.
There's
absolutely.
tutorials on YouTube. I'm like, oh, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure this out. I can do this. I can figure this out. Everything's self-taught except for obviously fashion school and commerce.
Right. But I don't know. I think that's beautiful too. I think that speaks a lot to who you are, that you see a challenge and you don't run from it.
Yeah.
Like when you finally
Unless the challenge is me, right? Unless it's myself, because I ran from that for 10 years.
Well, but what I was getting to is when you finally got to the point where you saw the challenge that you needed to start working on, then you did. And you're actively doing that.
Yeah.
So sure, you took 10 years off of doing that, but then the second you needed to, you've gone on this big mental health journey. You have a podcast where you talk to people and you share these things. I mean, that's massive.
Yeah.
You're speaking to people who, so many people go through traumas and just don't know how to speak about it. So the fact that you, especially as someone who's put out content for so long and has a big audience, I mean, that's really beautiful to lend yourself to that now. I know that's helping yourself, which is a good thing to get with all of it, but also putting it out there for other people is really beautiful. To do it in the public eye is a really
well, you're doing it too when you're allowing people to share their stories too, and helping give them a voice or like a platform to step on. Like, I think we can all, help empower each other, and even if you can't totally relate to someone's story, it's just being able to hear someone be open and vulnerable and share that actually is like makes you feel like, okay, maybe my story is valid too and I can share it too, and you can. And you should. So
absolutely. And I mean, the more conversations like the ones that I have on my podcast, you have on your podcast, this current conversation, the more these become the norm, the less people have to take 10 years off from talking about that to themselves.
Yeah. And I find it like once you start to have conversations like this with your friends and stuff, you actually start to have deeper relationships with them too, and you can understand them better, and you can also help other people with their own healing, right? So like now that you've done your healing and you've really addressed your behavior, you can help other people kind of with their behavior too, if they're willing to look at it.
Right. But leading by example, I feel like, especially with your close friends, they will see that. And in turn, even if they're not willing at first, they're still going to hear it because they see what you're putting out. So as the more we put out these kinds of energies into the world, I think people start to finally see that, man, it's okay to talk about these things. I mean, your story is not an easy story to talk about at all. I know. I mean, I've not been through it, but it can't be an easy topic to talk about. But it's such an important one for other people to be able to come out and talk about it and not be shamed on themselves for what happened or any stigma that surrounds it. Yeah. So I think it's super, super beautiful that you're doing that.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I think it's super beautiful what you're doing. I have a question for you though.
Okay.
So when you started your like recovery, did you lose was there any surprises? Did you lose any friends that you thought were going to like stick around, or like did you set up any new boundaries or have any new self-discoveries about yourself?
I did. Yeah. I had the big discovery that I thought I didn't give a shit about a lot of things, but that I really did give a shit about a lot of things. And there were just certain parts of my life that I wasn't willing to not speak up on anymore.
Yeah.
Especially with a coming to death moment, I just wasn't willing to not talk about mental health or my addiction or just the religious traumas and, stuff that put me in a different category from certain friends of mine. And yeah, I just put up boundaries of if I wasn't getting positive reinforcement from people, that I wasn't going to be a part of it. Not that I don't see importance of them, but it just wasn't someone I was going to keep in my life.
Yeah.
It wasn't, I don't know. I got a lot of pushback in my hometown of people trying to tell me to settle, and that's just not me.
Yeah.
And so when I saw that, I had to get away from that, because I was going into a new life of a new journey of myself. And so when those sort of conversations started coming up, I had to get away from them quickly, because I was in a very big open space of my life, and I could have gone to many different ways, but that was definitely not the way I was going. I had gotten to that point in my life at that night that I told you about, that I was happy with me living my life the way I wanted to, and I wasn't about to go through all that and then settle.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You live through something that severe and crazy. It's not about to be like, that's it.
Yeah. Well, that's
like, no way,
that's
dude.
so awesome, because I feel like you grew up in this environment that was super restrictive, and so you were like, no, I want to be me, and I'm going to go like balls to the wall. And you did that. And so then you lived your life, but you were also like destructive, but you lived your life to the fullest, to the max. And so then when you had your near-death experience, you really were like, well, I did a solid by me at the same time, because I chose me. I chose me.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just going to go through this in my head, and it's kind of a question to you as well, back at you as I'm speaking through this. I feel like, and mine was more apparent because alcoholism is hard to hide, even if you think you're hiding it. But I had a lot of people who saw me in my tough times and wanted to help. We'll quote unquote that, because no one's actually seeing me. Wanted to help, and then when I got good and then I made my own mind up, it wasn't what they wanted for me, so that made them be negative towards me. So I had a few people that were like, the whole time I was drinking, were trying to help, or wanting to help, of like, you come back to our hometown and get yourself good. And as I was getting myself good, that wasn't good enough, because I wanted to leave and go do what I was doing before. So they put expectations on me for my recovery. Was that, as you've been going through yours, is that something you're finding with certain people, that if you're, as you're getting better, it's not the way they want you to get better, and so it's conflicting? Are you having that at all?
I'm not having that, but that's so interesting.
I just thought of that.
Yeah. No, I'm not having that. I think, so I didn't tell my mom that I was sexually assaulted. She found out by listening to my podcast.
Oh, wow.
So I couldn't face her.
Yeah.
There's no way I was going to be like, Mom, let's sit down and have this conversation. I need to tell you something that I've been harboring for 10 years that might explain a thing or two about my behavior.
Sure.
And so yeah, I couldn't do it. And so when she heard about it, she was very sad for me, and like, wanted to like hold me like her child and protect me. But no, like, I think maybe because it was different for me, like I wasn't choosing me the entire time. Right. And no one could understand why. So when I finally told everyone why I wasn't choosing me, and that I'm starting to choose me, everyone was like, yay. Like,
Yes. Yeah.
like any way you want to do it. Like
yeah.
didn't like you can put it on blast on a podcast. No one cared, like
Yeah.
it was just like, no, we're gonna be supportive as you are becoming you.
Sure.
So yeah, I didn't have that, but it's still a process for me, and I'm sure I overshare certain things, and I try to be very mindful about what I'm saying and like who I'm bringing into the conversations, because some people might not want that information put out there, and it's more private and stuff, like especially family stuff can be very difficult because like I said, my family has been very rocky, and I actually lost a sibling a couple months ago, and my eldest sister she passed away when I was 19 too, or when she was 19 and I was only 6. So after that, like my parents got divorced, and it was just really difficult for everybody. And so there's definitely layers of trauma there for every member of my family.
Yeah.
And even though like I'm on a journey, I don't want, to force anything onto them too, even though they probably should be addressing stuff. And it's actually probably helped me as well have better relationships with them, because I've given myself more self-compassion and looked at myself as only being human. And so I have to also give them the same grace and compassion that I've given myself.
Yeah. And that's beautiful.
And so, it's helped build relationships that I never thought that, would be strong, and just accepting people for who they are, like not who I always wanted them to be.
Right.
Which can be so difficult, especially when it comes to like parents,
Yeah.
And I used to like
that's a big one.
Avoid those things like as part of self-preservation, but it isn't self-preservation, it's avoidance. So
yeah,
it's tricky.
I didn't even. Wow. Yeah, it is so tricky, especially when you're working through stuff and you're thinking someone else should be in the same
room
category or the same space, the same place you're at. Yeah. It's like, but it took me a certain time to get to here, so it takes other people.
Yeah, and I think some people will just never get there.
Totally. I think our parents' generation is a lot of that.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot tougher on them.
Yeah.
Just from my experience. Wow, that's amazing. So much good stuff to think about with that. I love it. I'm gonna change change speeds for a second.
Okay.
So just from hearing little blips into your story here, you've traveled quite a bit. I always ask the question on this podcast, if I had a plane ticket to anywhere in the world and I came to you and I gave it to you and you could go anywhere in the world, where would you go?
Somewhere I haven't been yet. So I've always wanted to go to the Philippines, and I've always wanted to go to Croatia. I wanted to sail in Croatia. Can we do like something specific? I want to sail in Croatia. Yeah.
Perfect.
Philippines sounds fun.
Wonderful.
I would love to go to like Thailand. Can it be like a multi-destination ticket?
Yeah,
I've
of course.
Never been to Bali.
Yeah, of course. This is our dream. Yeah. So go big.
Japan would be cool.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been to China. Yeah, I think. Like the Maldives. Yeah. Because I want to go to the Maldives because it's gonna be underwater in a couple of years.
Right. Yeah.
So if you're gonna go soon.
Yeah, get planning. Yeah. As the world is opening, if you want to get there, start looking into figuring that out.
Yeah.
Where's your favorite place you've been?
This is like the hardest
it's an impossible question. I know. I always do it, and then I'm like, I can't stand getting that question.
Can I do like the biggest surprise destination?
Yeah, please.
It didn't.
I love that.
My expectations were just blown away. Cartagena, Colombia. So I went there on a press trip didn't think much of it. Like, wasn't sure what I was getting into. It is stunning, and the people are so friendly, and things are not that expensive, and you can go salsa dancing, you can go out for drinking. They have a walled city, which is pretty safe, and like you could go there and rent massive like villas, or you can go stay in these really, really nice boutique hotels. All of them are like boutique there in the walled city, and yeah, just so fun and so wonderful. Great weather. They have like they're part of the Caribbean Sea, ocean. Anyways, you go sailing there. They have beaches. Cool. Yeah, it was really nice. I would totally go back to Colombia.
That's so awesome. Actually, you've inspired me. I'm changing up my, instead of favorite, biggest surprise location, because that's a very easy answer if I ever get that question.
Yeah. What's yours?
One.
Oh my God, tell me.
My biggest surprise that I love, I spent 5 days driving around Romania.
Okay. Yeah, big surprise. Okay.
And it was the coolest shit ever.
Was it?
It was so cool.
What was cool about it?
I mean, the landscape, it was gorgeous. The mountains, just unexpected, because it's one of those places in the world, which there's so many, especially growing up where I did in a small town in Ohio, that you just don't learn about certain geography when you're in certain places. So I just didn't know shit about it. I didn't know the history of Romania, which is bonkers, like batshit crazy.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, they had they had the last public hanging, which was in the 90s.
Really?
On Christmas Day, they had a leader that they couldn't stand, so they hung him and his wife because he was such an asshole.
Okay, that's a little valid.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it says a lot. Yeah. But there's also this road, which I can't pronounce it, but funny enough, I had an Uber driver who was from Romania, and we got to talking, and I told him I had driven this road, and it's on many lists, like top 5 roads in the world. It basically looks like you dropped a spaghetti noodle in the middle of the
mountain range,
these
and it
gorgeous
just
mountains, and it just is like
zigzags back and forth.
Amazing. Yeah, I told him I drove it, and he got out of his car and he hugged me, and he said, I never got to do that in my country. I just have to hug you because you've been to my country, you told me you loved it, and you drove this road. That's amazing. And like Vlad the Impaler was from there, which is what the story of Dracula came from, because he was this crazy ass dude who used to impale people, hence the name Vlad the Impaler. And it was just mind blowing. There were people like gypsies there, and like it felt like I was 20 years before I was there.
Yeah.
It was awesome. And it just blew me away because I didn't know shit about it.
Yeah, I don't really know shit about it either, except I saw this one documentary where they were showing all of these like underground tunnels and caves, and people were living in them. And that's where like the homeless people lived. Is like all, and they would they bury and like have like their homes there and their beds there and little kitchens, and then they would like travel through all these tunnels and go say hi to their friends and go to their friends' houses.
That's so
and
rad.
Stuff. It was crazy. I was like, oh my God, I don't think I was a little claustrophobic just watching it.
Sure, yeah.
I'm just gonna put that out there. I don't think I would do well in that kind of a tight space. Mind you, I am in a closet right now. So
I was gonna bring that up when you said you found a ukulele in the closet, and I was like, was it that closet that you're in?
No,
you're like, and here it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so awesome. So when you go on those trips, and what are you usually like when you're getting paid to go there? What are you usually doing when you're on those trips?
I don't sleep for like days. It's because it depends. Okay, usually I'm on assignment. So if I'm on an assignment with a publication, depending on if it's like a consumer publication or like a trade publication, I have a different audience, so they'd be interested in much different things.
Sure.
So yeah, I would try to experience the hotel. I would take as many pictures as possible. Usually I'd be getting up at like 6 a.m., getting ready, doing my makeup, waking my boyfriend up, giving him tons of coffee and being like, okay, let's go. And then we'd
Yeah.
like try and hit all of these spots before the tourist bus show up, so we can get like pictures without like
Sure.
tons of people in them, or like trying to avoid
Yeah.
people. Sometimes it's like not possible. And usually I've done all this research beforehand, where I go and look for the coolest bars or like patios or markets and stuff people like usually like to go and
Yeah.
see and do while they're on vacation, or even though like I did a trip to Aspen, which is obviously a super expensive destination. So I did this guide, and it was kind of like a where to splurge and where to save. And so people
cool.
can go to Aspen and they don't have to like, spend so much money like to do all these things, when really they can get by on like, going to this hotel because they have little kitchenettes, and you can go to this little grocer and like get all this stuff and like make stuff in your room. And there's a special in the lobby for $12 pizzas, and you can have an like wood fire pizza, and you save a little bit of money that way. And then you can go snowmobiling and spend $200 on snowmobiling,
Right,
because that's so fun. And like, where else would you do that? Like, Aspen's the perfect place. So
Yeah.
so like I put together these little guides and stuff, and so usually the itinerary is pretty packed.
Sure.
And I have to do that ahead of time so that I can make sure that everything's planned. Like, so when we were in Portugal, we did like a pastel de nata baking class, which is like those Portuguese custard tarts.
Amazing.
So we
Sure.
learned how to make those, which was really fun. And we had a couple dinners that were hosted. So we'd go and I'd take a lot of pictures of the food, and like then I just wrote a whole food guide, because there was just so many good places to eat, and like, little cheap peri chicken places that were like €8 that, someone who's staying at like a hostel and visiting Lisbon could go to. Or you want to go to one of the Michelin star chef's little like taberna, you could go to that and like have a great meal. And it's not even like technically that expensive. It was maybe like, I don't know, $70 US per person. And it was like 7-8 courses, like
Damn.
it was good value. So if you're willing to like go for that, and so like I try to pack my itinerary and like add even in like a little day trip somewhere. So, like if somewhere you could travel to by train just to go check out something outside the city, and then come back. And usually by the end of the day, we're pretty exhausted. And
Yeah. I like how you preface it of it's jam-packed, because I think so many people, myself included, see people traveling for travel writing and whatever, and they just think, oh my God, it's the greatest, which I'm sure, yes, like I get paid to travel in a different way, but yeah, it's a lot of work to do this.
Yeah, and
to put on
it's
this,
exhausting. Because I'm up at 6. First of all, like I'm following the sun. My shooting schedule, like to take photos and stuff, is following the sun. So I can only shoot like between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. outside, and then we'll have to go to lunch somewhere where I can shoot inside, like by a window, and then we'll maybe take like a break and like walk off our food, and then between 4 and sunset we're shooting again, and then you're done, and then you have to go back to your room, edit everything before bed. Otherwise you're staying, and usually I would still end up like posting my stories and posting something or prepping a scheduled post for the next day. I'd be up till midnight and then up again at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
So
and
it's exhausting.
All dealing with the travel and all of that hitting your body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a lot of shit.
Yeah, I hardly sleep.
Yeah.
But it's fun.
Oh, man.
I mean,
Yeah.
While I am like young and without kids and like able to do it and don't have as many responsibilities or like health restrictions, like I'm gonna do it, but it's not sustainable.
Sure. Yeah, it takes a toll on you, especially when you're running around and doing all of that, and then the lack of sleep and
well, I'm sure being
your
on tour
body's
is
telling-
very, very similar. Like no one can go on tour for like a whole year. I feel like they die without any breaks.
Yeah, it's brutal. I've done 11 in a year, and it was rough.
11 months?
Yeah.
Wow.
I did 10.5 on the road and then like 3.5 traveling for myself. And it was a pretty high burnout year.
Yeah.
I got pretty sick at the end. My body just was like.
It's probably good that you were in the same, were you like traveling from country to country in different time zones too, or back and forth and everything? Oh my God.
Yeah, it was rough. My body did not enjoy that year.
Was that why you were drinking?
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It's probably why I did okay for the most of it.
Yeah. You're numbing.
Oh God. Exactly. My body was like, at least just give me some of this and I'll be fine.
Yeah.
All right. I have 2 last questions for you. First one is, what would you want the world to know about you?
I don't know. I'm not that special. Except that, like, I don't know. I'm really not that special. I feel like anyone can do whatever I'm doing. It's not hard. I don't think you want to do it exactly the way I'm doing it, because you probably have your own like creative way of doing it, and it's probably could be even better. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I want them to know. I'm a good person. I'm a nice person, I guess.
Yeah. I think that's a beautiful thing for people to know. I've had a couple of conversations with you now, and I fully believe that.
But I hope there's a lot of nice people in their lives, and I hope I'm not that special of a nice person.
Well, I hope for that. I hope for them that they have nice people in their lives too.
Yeah.
Everybody deserves nice people in their lives. All right. And if you had the ear of everybody in the world, what would you say to them?
That it's okay to not be perfect, and it's okay to talk about things that are bothering you and upsetting you and things that you've been through, and apologize and be vulnerable. And I think it's better. There's so many people that I feel like I maybe didn't hurt them, but I just wasn't a very good friend. And I don't think it's too late to apologize. And I think it's also important to like call out your own toxicity and see that and accept that was something that was a symptom of like what you've been through. And it's not who you are, but that doesn't mean that you can't like change and evolve and also face that past and make it right and apologize, or ask yourself to do better, ask yourself to be stronger, ask yourself to honor yourself a little bit better and more. And it's never too late to do any of that stuff. Or to pick up the ukulele.
I love that. Right at the end there.
It's so fun.
Yeah, I love that. It's so good. I think that's a very beautiful message. I think people should really think into that for themselves, because it's not too late for any of that,
No.
ukulele included.
Yeah.
You can always learn new things. You can always forgive yourself and allow people to forgive you as well.
Yeah.
Because when you're going through shit, it's a tough time for yourself, and you probably don't treat people the best.
Yeah.
When you're not treating yourself well. So
and
give yourself grace.
And like you fall, like I saw this girl the other day, like walking in a park with her friends, and I hadn't seen her forever, and I was just thinking about how like I wasn't like that great of a friend to her, and not that like we were very close or anything. I just could have been a nicer person in general. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna apologize. And I don't think she'll even be like, she'll probably be surprised, be like, why are you apologizing? And it was nothing, I'm like, well, no, I feel like I could have been a better person, and I just I would apologize. So
yeah,
that's on my to-do list. So that's gonna happen.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. I think it means more to people than the initial like what you get back.
Yeah. Well, it's just
They'll
like
walk away and just go, "Oh,
there's so many people that come into your life and they meant to be like do something good or like add value to it, and you're just so on a whole different level dealing with your own stuff that you were destructive in every sense of the way. And so it doesn't hurt to and it probably will make you feel much better asking for forgiveness from someone that like you didn't have to do anything like crazy to them, but like just being like, hey, like I'm a different person now and I just want you to know that, and I'm sorry if I did anything to upset you. And it'll make you feel better, it'll make them feel better, you'll just add more positive energy into the world, and then it's like one thing lifted off of your conscience, and then you don't have to think about it anymore, and then you could be one less piece of baggage for you to carry on, because now you're a nice person and you don't mind apologizing.
Yeah,
takes a lot of strength.
Big. So much strength in that.
Yeah.
So much.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's beautiful. Well, I thank you so much for coming and hanging with me.
Yes,
this has been so fun.
Oh my God, I can't wait to have you on my podcast.
Yes. And where can on that note, where can they find your podcast? Where can they find you? Where can they connect with you? All the good stuff.
For
all
sure.
That.
So you can find me on Instagram at Is That So? So it's ISTHATSOH. And my website is isthatso.com. And the podcast is called the Is That So podcast, which is available on Apple, Google, Amazon, Stitcher. I don't know what's the other one. Spotify.
That one.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
You can't miss it. But yeah, come find me and come talk to me and say hi. Slip a message in my DM. I'm always talking to everybody.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Well, yeah, thank you. And I hope you have a beautiful rest of your evening.
Thank you very much. I'm going to get out of this closet and take a shower. I've been doing housework all day.
So perfect time for that.
Thank you very much.
You're so welcome.
Take care.
See you.
Thank you for listening to the Beautifully Human podcast. To hear more beautiful stories from beautiful humans, follow us on Spotify and rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at the Beautifully Human Podcast. Peace signs up.